Hello, and welcome to Speaking Out on Financial Abuse, stories of survival and hope after financial abuse in a marriage or romantic partnership. Today's guest is mindset and relationship expert, Christy Piper. Christy is a U.S. Navy veteran with a bachelor's and master's degrees in economics from Florida State University. Christy says she learned life's relationship lessons the hard way and is now using those experiences to empower you. Christy has developed strategies to help you uncover your own strength and resilience in a new book titled, Girl, You Deserve More: How to Break His Spell Over You, Escape Your Toxic Partner, and Become Independent. She also has a YouTube channel that discusses how to handle toxic people in your life. Christy, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Lori. It's great to be here today.
And so where in the world are you, and kind of where are you from originally?
I currently live in New England, but I've lived all over the East Coast of the United States, as well as California back in the day. And I'm originally from North Florida.
Oh, wow. So you've lived everywhere.
A little bit.
So let's just dig in right away. What inspired you to write a how to get out of a relationship book for women specifically?
Well, I always knew I was going to write a book or multiple books, but I didn't know which one to start with. So I started with something that I had a lot of experience doing and that I knew could help the most amount of people. And so I went through this experience not just once, but twice. And I just wanted to share my story with others and my experiences so that I could help them, make it a little easier on them.
So you have a history yourself in a toxic relationship. So is that why you say right away in your book that this is for people who are deciding that they want to leave as opposed to thinking about wanting to leave?
Yeah, I think that if it's just something you're passively thinking about doing, it's a lot harder to just take action, especially when you're in an environment like that, when you feel trapped. So just deciding you're going to do it and making that promise to yourself is really powerful.
And even though you are gearing this towards women who have really already made that decision to act, after reading this myself, I really would recommend this to anyone who's considering even thinking of leaving, because it seems like to know these steps in advance, well in advance, especially if you're very financially tied to somebody, you're tied with property, you're tied with assets, you're unhappy, you thinking that you might want to get out. Why not just start looking into that now?
You know, I think that it depends on the person. So I think in a case where somebody's been married for a long time and they do have a lot of stuff financially tied together and they're kind of like more stabilized, like they're not afraid they're going to like be kicked out of their home like next week or something like that. I think that in that case, they could definitely just venture into the book and start, reading it, even if they're not committed to leaving. Whereas somebody who's in a more dire situation, like maybe they've already seen some of the violence their partner's capable of, or they don't have any money saved up and they're scared, or they're just starting to see as abuse. Like, I think that in that case, a lot of people are still under I would call it cognitive dissonance. So it's like if they haven't fully bought into leaving quite yet, they're still wanting to believe things can get better. And in that case, they might not want to read a book like this because they're still hoping things will get better. And they're not at that stage yet where they feel like they're ready to leave or they want to leave. So that's kind of where I was coming from. But I think in a case when somebody knows like it's really bad and things aren't going to get better, I think that yeah, absolutely. This book would be perfect for somebody like that who isn't 100% sure like how they're going to do it yet, but they're definitely thinking about it.
Well, you start right away with some exercises and to really deconstruct what this relationship really is and where you're really at. And I'm just picking out one of your first exercises here, where you say to set a timer for 10 minutes and write down the negative words that he has said to lower your self-esteem and lead you to believe you can't leave. After you write down all the statements, come up with a counter statement that goes against his statement, thinking of your true traits and skills that don't line up with what he said. It sounds like what you're trying to do is break this, this shutdown of critical thinking and not accepting adjectives that are aimed at you. And you almost have to reinvent them within your own head of who you are, like reinvent yourself in your own head. Why do you think doing these exercises makes such a big difference?
So if you're with this person and you're really unhappy, there's a reason you're really unhappy. And usually it's because it's an abusive partner and they've said horrible things to you about yourself. And it didn't start that way most of the time. But over time, they've made you believe certain things about yourself that aren't true. Like, I kind of go over it in the book, depending on who you are and what your traits are. They'll kind of say, for example, you'll never be anything. You can never survive without me. You don't know how to make your own money. Like, what would you do without me? Or you're not any good at that. Why even try? And even if these are things other people have praised you for, if they're things you knew you were great at before, they're things you loved, it's like because he's the only voice in your head most of the time, you start to believe it. If somebody says something enough times, it becomes true in your mind over time. It's just kind of like a proven principle. And, you've got to start turning this around. And if you're in a victim mindset thinking you can't do anything, then it's going to be really, really hard to leave and to feel decent about yourself and like you can do this. So the first thing is to start remembering who you are and that you can leave and that you are a valuable person and, you have things to bring to the table. And the stuff he says about you absolutely isn't true.
Yeah. And you mentioned, how quick this type of abusive partner is to either threaten to smear your reputation, in which they'll usually just turn around and sweet talk you afterwards to come back, and how it's really hard to get a pulse on the core values of your relationship because it's been so buried in different emotions, different abuse, different accusations. And to get to a point where you can just believe in yourself and commit to leaving. What do you think is that moment, or what was that moment for you that made you switch from thinking about it to, okay, I'm done?
I knew something was wrong for a pretty long time because he would put me down and we were both, we both have graduate degrees in economics. And the fact that he would tell me like, I don't know about certain things, or he'd get downright upset sometimes if I'd bring up, I love talking to him about just like different theories of economics and ideas. And he would just downright get upset. He would get upset that I won an award in economics that he went for at our school and he didn't get it. And he never congratulated me for that. So I thought that was like really weird. But I would say it was too late for me in a way. Okay. So I didn't decide to leave. Like I knew I wanted to leave, but I was so scared to face these facts that like, okay, I should start saving up money and stuff because he was so in my business that I felt like he didn't want me to have a job. So I felt like I couldn't do it with him breathing down my back. So it became too late and he kicked me out.
And in most cases, according to your book, you're probably going to have a partner who's spying on you and who knows your passwords. He sees you using your phone. He's good with technology. Even if he's bad, he's got a friend who knows how to do it. And they seem to, know information, as you said, get in your business to the point you become very paranoid and really not sure who to trust, who not to trust. And in order to make a decision like that, really have to feel confident that this is something you want to change. And do you feel that doing those exercises, they lead you that direction?
Yes, because the thing with the exercises is they're pointing you towards writing something down and you're documenting something, whether it's pictures or a voice recording. And the thing is, like, once you have it down on paper and you can look at it, or you have the voice recording, you really can't deny that. Whereas if you just have it in your mind and you say, well, why did you call me this? Or why do you always say I'm like that? He can say, oh, I never said that. I always say you're great. I support you all the time. I have your back. So then now you're confused. But if you have it where you can look at it and you're like, no, he said these words to me. And even if you have a date and a time or when and how it happens, it's like, no. Like you really, you can't deny it at that point. And you have the evidence right there, and he can't gaslight you anymore. I mean, he can try and he probably will, but just having it right in front of you is super powerful.
You do talk a lot about finances. In financial abuse, there's two kinds of victims. You've got your breadwinner who's forced to support a deadbeat, and you've got a partner, or you've got a partner who's being completely financially controlled by somebody else with no access to personal finances. You talk about setting up your own financial identity, and it seems like that's really one of your first priorities is find your own financial identity. And you talk about a lot of alternative options, including even getting burner phones, and it reminds me a lot of the Katie Holmes, Tom Cruise situation where she had a big divorce attorney father in Toledo get her burner phones for a year so she could establish residency in New York. And so, what is the first thing someone who wants to get out of an abusive marriage or partnership do financially? If, let's say, first, if you're the breadwinner victim, you are the one that's paying for everything. What do you think is the first thing you should try to do if you're going to take a step forward to leaving?
So I'm really glad you brought this up because I don't talk about it too much in my book that if you're the breadwinner, like what you would do differently. Because the thing with abusive relationships is, yes, a lot of them do, most of them control with money. And the thing is, like, yes, usually the victim is the one who is being, who has less money, who doesn't have their own resources. But there's also abusers who find somebody who makes a lot of money and they're basically just using them for all their resources. And I always say, like, an abuser's always trying to get on your payroll or trying to get you on their payroll. Okay. It's one or the other. Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, because it's big, right? I mean, if you're living with somebody, finances are really important. So if you're the breadwinner, I would say, I mean, a lot of it is the same in a lot of ways. It's like getting your own bank accounts, like making sure you have your own money separate from, your partner, whether it's, it might be too much. It might be a little too obvious to take their name off of accounts. But the thing is, if they've done things to deem that like necessary, like going on spending binges, gambling, things like that, yeah, I mean, that's a really great reason. But I would say doing it subtly, like I would probably open my own new account and just start putting more money into that one. And depending how much money they have access to on your account, yeah, I might just take their name off or just take most of the money out of it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And then just keeping your behaviors, like, don't change your behavior. Just try to keep your behaviors like, baseline behavior so they don't suspect that anything's up, and just do all these things without, them having any idea that that's what you're doing.
And that must be the hardest part is you are trying to, quote, be normal, but the relationship isn't normal, which is why you're getting out. So it's, you can double your stress for a while, or at least to expect it while you are preparing to try to leave. You are also putting on an act and, keeping things mellow, as mellow as you can, so that you're not looked at suspiciously by your partner. And the other type of victim, the one who doesn't have access to anything, the one who doesn't have a personal bank account, the one who gets handed an allowance or has to ask their husband or partner for money. How does someone like that, who really is kind of under a microscope, how do they take that step to start leaving?
So any money that their partner gives them, they should try to, or that anybody gives them really, whether it's like birthday money or if they do have a job making money, definitely open their own accounts that he does not know about and start putting money away. Even if it's like he gives you, let's say, $100 a week for groceries or something, just put like 20% of that away each week. And, if he asks you about it, which a lot of them are very controlling, and they might even ask. I had a friend who would ask where her husband would ask to account for every single dollar that she spent. Oh, where'd that money go? She'd have to say, oh, I bought some, lip balm at CVS. And he'd say, how much was that? Just really asking the details. So you might have to get pretty creative and come up with, some answers about what you bought, an extra milkshake on the way home or a tea or something. If it's that controlling. But because the thing is, you asked me, or you mentioned earlier, what are these abusers looking for whenever they're spying on you? Like whenever they're putting the GPS on your car, whenever they're, getting the passwords to your computer, like what are they trying to find? And the thing is, like, the short answer is everything. Okay. To a normal person, it doesn't make sense, but to them, they know they're doing something wrong. They know they're not treating you right. They absolutely know this, and they know that there's always a chance that you're going to be looking for other options, and they want to watch your behavior, watch who you're interacting with, watch what money sources you have, which is really important, by the way, to see like are you changing your behavior? Do you have access to money? And are you thinking about leaving? Can you leave?
And they'll circle your friends like sharks. It kind of goes into this new term called flying monkeys. And I only heard about that recently. Flying monkeys are those fringe friends and maybe even family members of yours who you never bothered getting rid of. And, like that drunk girl from elementary school who keeps coming around every few years with her latest drunk guy. You don't even return her calls half the time, but you keep letting her drunk girl come around with her drunk guy. And then they turn on you and you're surprised. I think that one of the most difficult things about leaving somebody who is micromanaging who you are and what you can do is, can you trust the people around you? You certainly have to start reevaluating, I assume, who you can trust. And again, those fringe friends of yours that you never bothered getting rid of, those can become flying monkeys for your partner. And they can cause enormous damage to you and your chances of getting out of a relationship in one piece. How do you advise somebody to communicate with friends and family if they don't want them to know that they're leaving? I know it's try to act normal, but you have to start scrutinizing the people around you.
Absolutely. So the thing is, you're talking about these people as fringe friends and they turned on you and if you can trust them. Well, the short answer is they were probably never your friends. They were, acquaintances. They might not mean you any harm or anything like that, but you can't trust that many people when it comes down to it. And it's not even like they might try to do something against you, which is possible too, but it's like people just don't understand that what they say can just ruin somebody's life. For them, it's nothing, right? For them, it's like, oh yeah, so-and-so is thinking about leaving you. Like, what's the deal? Like, that's not going to affect them if they talk about it. So they're not going to remember. So for me, I don't really keep those people around, and I don't tell them the inner details of my life for sure. I would choose like 1 to 3 people to really confide in, someone that is 100% trustworthy and on your side, someone can keep their mouth shut, because you also have those friends who mean well, but they're very codependent. They can't keep their mouth shut. If somebody asks them a direct question, they don't know how to lie. They don't know how to just say, I don't know, or I'm not answering that. They get uncomfortable and confronted, and you can't trust a person like that, even if you do really love them and they care about you.
Mm-hmm. So really then your best, when you say trust 1 to 3 people, really turning to, you mentioned a lot of good sources, domestic violence groups, looking for forums for survivors, talking to a lawyer, talking to professionals where you have guaranteed privacy. Is that what you would more recommend than even talking to your friends as a first line of defense or first effort?
Well, if you have like a really close best friend who isn't a big talker, like who doesn't spread your business, you can, run it by them. But if they don't seem to really get it, or they don't, they're not trained professionals. So if they haven't been through this themselves or know somebody who has directly, like they might just not even understand. They might even say, oh, well, he doesn't mean that. He seems so nice. Because honestly, a lot of these partners try to charm your best friends and family. They act totally different around them when they're there. And they'll think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I had a friend, anytime he would come to see us, like visit us, so she was in the hospital for a while, and I would, visit her a lot because she was my neighbor. And I, just to say hi or whatever. Anytime I was there, he would always bring food for both of us. Okay. He'd always bring stuff for both of us. So I was always like,
sweet.
Wow, what a nice guy. He is a great guy.
Yeah.
So, like in cases like that, it's like they might not see the real him, but a professional, when you're getting outside help, hopefully not all of them have been trained in this matter. And you can kind of tell by asking them some questions, and if they don't seem to get your issue, don't be afraid to move on and find a different professional. Like if this social worker or chaplain or therapist doesn't get it, like don't be afraid to be like, okay, thanks for your advice. And then just look for somebody else. You have to vet them out. Just because of their position doesn't mean they have the experience or proper training to understand your situation either. So it's not just friends that won't understand you, but there's even professionals who won't. But just don't be afraid to just vet them out and just go on to the next one. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. Like you're hiring them, to help you out.
Yeah, because the number one priority is your life. And it is common, especially for women that are involved in an organized religion that they're very devoted to and has been very good for them up till now. They can be surprised by taking that to their local clergy and find out that they will say, we need to go home and be a better wife. And that is a very common response from religious institutions. And again, I go back to critical thinking. This is why you need to develop critical thinking at an early age, because these are the times in your life where you need to be able to separate your delusions about a relationship from the truth. And that's what I think is so fantastic about your book, is that these exercises alone really make you stop and think. And, they say in law, it's not what's true, it's what you can prove. And,
Right.
an abusive partner can prove anything. I mean, they can prove anything. They can prove you're crazy. But is that what's true? You have to get a grip on what's true. And I think your book does an amazing job at that. What's your tip for somebody listening right now who is in a relationship, either under financial abuse, domestic violence? They're listening to your story and they're hearing about your book. What's the first thing they should do besides get your book?
Yeah, definitely. So they should shield part of their life, make it private from anybody, but especially their partner. So that could be getting bank accounts that, he doesn't know about, as well as income. Like if, she doesn't have any income right now, really just getting a job or some source of income, and even if it's extra money from him every month, and putting it away into that bank account and just steadily building from there.
So become a squirrel, become a little squirrel, dollars, pennies, just put them away. And what's your tip for someone listening who right now is a survivor of financial abuse, domestic violence, and they're trying to start over?
Well, I would say it's never too late. It might seem it'll get worse before it gets better in many cases. Like it feels worse. You miss them. You feel like, oh my gosh, like the rug was just pulled out from underneath me. Like, what do I do? I'm lonely. I don't have enough money. I mean, these thoughts might enter your head. You might feel guilty. You might feel like things weren't so bad, but just stay the course, and it's never too late. You can start over no matter what your age, what your circumstance. There's always a way. You just have to believe in yourself and take the steps to get there and just stay strong. And getting support, whether it's, your best friend super supportive or just seeing a great therapist, that's just so important. It's invaluable.
Yeah, gain allies. Never try to do this alone. And though a lot of us end up having to do this alone. But if you can, find your allies.
Ultimately, you're probably going to end up doing it alone, like taking the steps yourself. Absolutely. Like saving your own money or moving stuff out. I mean, you might have a couple people helping out, but ultimately they're mostly there for like moral support and emotional support. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Christy, I really appreciate you being on the show today. And again, her book is called Girl, You Deserve More: How to Break His Spell Over You, Escape Your Toxic Partner, and Become More Independent. Thank you again, Christy. This has really been a terrific conversation. And we can find you on YouTube. And what is the name of your YouTube channel?
Christy Piper. Very original. Very mysterious.
Thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you all again.
Thank you, Lori.